On such a beautiful day, it's easy to see that life on earth is an amazing thing and that we're surrounded by miracles all the time. Today, because it's such a wonderful day, I'd like to discuss something that's been on my mind since the first time I ever walked into a garden. I call it the mystery of the seeds. One of the basic skill levels to acquire in gardening is success with seeds. And gardening is really so much all about seeds. I guess this is how it started, It was thousands and millions of years ago in the distant past. Our Neolithic gardener ancestors with their stick with the stone on the end started cultivating wild plants because it was easier to gather up extra seed and plant it in a locality so you could find it again rather than walking all over heck through the woods trying to locate what you wanted to eat or use for medicine or whatever. And so, at the very bottom of the beginning of agriculture was seed gathering, seed storage, seed selection, seeds. That's what it's all about. And there's something about gardening and seeds that for me is almost indescribable. I can't put it into words very well. As you all know, I love to throw words around. And so I'm going to give it a shot. But the actual feeling of what it was like for me as a young man when I had my first seed catalog in my hands and was planning to do a garden. I'd spend the winter with those brightly colored seed catalogs with all their promises of success and taste and beauty and so on. And I dream too. The guys who sell seeds, they want you to do this. It's easy, It's kind of like when you watch me eat a delicious piece of fruit. You gotta have it, That picture of that tomato on the page there, I gotta have it. I can smell it. I can taste it. There's something almost a little magical about seeds and gardening. It's definitely mysterious because here you have these little itty bitty tiny capsule of genetic information with little stored food in there. And, almost every time it hits it right on the mark, But you put it in the ground, and if it was supposed to be a cherry bell radish, usually it comes up as a cherry bell radish. There are exceptions, but it's amazing. The coating, the seed is, in my opinion, one of the most perfect natural machines that there is. With the exception of a small bit of pasture grass over to the left, everything that's on this property was planted by me or by Ellen or by friends of ours. So there have been a lot of failures, but it's the successes that we're looking at right now. And as you can see, there's a lot of successful stuff. When I first started growing plants, I remember going through seed catalogs in the wintertime in the Midwest and looking at this one and that one, and this radish was black and that one was white and this one was two-tone and that cabbage was purple and this one had stripes, and on and on and on. It was so amazing that in the little teeny seeds that you buy in the paper packages, that they'll grow up into such individual, special little things. For gardeners, it's one of the big thrills in life. It's feeling. There's just a feeling about having seeds and planting seeds and watching the seeds develop. Now, it depends, some of us, like myself, we're stark raving mad, and so, collect seeds for plants that won't possibly even look like something for the first 100 years, and so on. I've grown plenty of giant redwood trees when I lived in California. These things really start to look like something after the 2000s year. There is a bit to say on that one, and I think that when we attach ourselves to organisms that have such huge, long lifespans and attempt to control their destiny a bit by planting the seed, and finding a spot for it to grow, I think it helps us gain a different perspective on time than we ordinarily have as humans. We don't live very long. We're real short-lived creatures. Our lives are a flash, kind of intense maybe sometimes, but they don't last long. We're gone. It's over with. Being able to see the world through the sensory organs, whatever they might be, of a giant sequoia, a coastal redwood, or a Hawaiian koa tree or something like this. It's an expansion of consciousness. It's definitely a sort of spiritual experience to step out of our own time and step into time along with something that lives for much longer. That promise. It's the promise of seed, that when you take seed and you plant it, that there's a promise in doing this act. You're going to work hard sometimes to get it all done, and you're going to hope that the seed will, as promised, develop into the crop that you were looking for, and it usually does, provided the gardener stays out of the way. Gardeners have a way of being their own worst enemies sometimes. The plants know exactly what they're doing. Gardeners are the only ones that mess up.
Here, the bishop's cap peppers, such unusual looking little things, and such strong plants too. They really work well here in Hawaii. Here, there be onions. And alfalfa. And the cocktail peppers we put in the other day, along with marigolds and papayas. Eggplants. Lima beans. Ubi. Celery. Amaranth. And the seed was yellow and wrinkly, and we call that sweet corn. Over there had a funny shell on it, and it was called a peanut. This corn, it's gonna pop. There's the pigeon peas and lime trees and strange pineapples. This one, we're not gonna get any seeds. It's the Florida landrace pineapple. It doesn't even appear to flower. I have not seen a flower in it. But wow, does it produce offsets. Man, I don't know what kind that is, but I never seen a pineapple grow like that. Yeah, it's Pinus colossus. Wow. And so many different types of hibiscus. Fabulous. Like a volcanic eruption. And the next one, so soft, pink, and bridal. So beautiful. Looks like it was airbrushed.
As a young man living in Illinois in the Midwest, having that seed catalog, there's snow outside piling up on the windowsills, and still drifting down, and be sitting there in the warmth of my house, looking at the pictures and imagining the next garden. And, the excitement of a new variety that I'd never seen before. Now, as a new gardener, everything's new, and so some of this stuff that I was all excited about had been around for centuries, but I didn't know that, and it's not important. For me, it's new, and so I'd get all excited about wanting to grow this or wanting to grow that. After a few years, you kind of kind of hone it down a bit so that you have your favorite crops. You know, there are plants you know that will grow well for you in your area because you have some experience behind it. Things change a bit as there's more experience. There used to be a lot more uncertainty. I didn't really know whether something was going to grow or not. These days, the uncertainty factor is still there, but it's not as intense as it once was. So I think this it kind of inspired a bit of an adrenaline rush to do with gardening, you know, because when you're uncertain, you develop a certain amount of fear, you know. And so there was even more excitement, sort of like stage fright, I guess you could call it a little bit. But over time, I began to realize that certain seed companies were better at some jobs than others were, you know, or if I was looking for organic seeds or if I was looking for new cultivars, new varieties that are just being trialed, I found out that, you know, Johnny's Selected Seeds in Albion, Maine was a really, really good place for that. As time passes on, you know, and you get deeper into this stuff, I discovered things like Seed Savers Exchange, Decorah, Iowa. Seed Savers, it's just a great thing. I mean, God, what a concept. You know, we talk about heirloom. Well, you know, heirloom doesn't mean very much today anymore because the original definition actually meant it was a cultivar or a variety of plant that had really never been in commercial circulation, or if it had been, it had fallen out of commercial circulation over time. And so these were seeds that were being passed hand to hand. That's what heirloom means, really, when you're talking about seed. Something that's not commercial. Most of what they call an heirloom today is obviously commercial because people are buying them. But there was a time when stuff that was on Seed Savers Exchange was true, real heirlooms. I mean, the Brandywine tomato had always been an Amish community heirloom passed hand to hand between the farmers. And it wasn't really until it showed up on Seed Savers Exchange that it gradually moved over to the commercial sector. But initially, that was about the only way that if you were an Amish, you were going to get your hands on that seed. People had it. This was very, very exciting ability to get at varieties of stuff that had, you know, never been commercially available. Very reasonable organization, didn't cost much to join, etc., etc. It was so exciting. It was just a whole world of seed, hand to hand between gardeners. I eventually started listing myself in there too, so I had offerings. Discover organizations like California Rare Fruit Growers. California Rare Fruit Growers, some of the members had stuff in their hands that, wow, you couldn't get your hands on almost any other way. It was so exciting to be able to, you know, to get at some of this exotic fruit that they had collected. That was delightful when I first ran into them. You know, there's very specialty seed companies. There's J.L. Hudson in La Honda, California. I love them. An ethnobotanical seed firm. This is a company that sells seeds for almost any plant that has some human usage. And so everything from cotton seeds, you know, on out to the lost crops of the Incas. I remember they had one section of the catalog that was all stuff collected in Oaxaca, Mexico with the natives, and they had very special stuff. Some of the first capsicum pubescens or rocoto chilies that I ever grew in my life came out of that collection. You know, so you know, you run into catalogs and places where you can find seed that's very obscure, and it's so exciting to be able to know that that seed was a crop growing, you know, at 6,500 feet in Oaxaca, Mexico the previous year, and it had never been grown, say, in Hawkins, Wisconsin, where I was living. But I got the seed through J.L. Hudson, and I planted it in Hawkins, and boy, it grew. How about that, you know? it's very exciting for that seed to show up thousands and thousands of miles away from its native home and to actually perform where it had been brought to. In the Midwest, the prairie plants, the native prairie vegetation of the Midwest, in many cases, some of the plants are extinct. Almost all of them are endangered. The prairie remnants, as we call them, are tiny pieces of land that had somehow been overlooked and hadn't been plowed down or built over, and so there'd be these small patches of prairie remnants. Well, when I'd find one, I used to go out and gather seeds from it, and, bring them back to my my farm, and I'd grow them out, and I'd plant these patches of prairie plants, preserving these seeds that were, you know, becoming very badly endangered, almost gone. It was tremendous fun. I mean, I just enjoyed all of this. Here in Hawaii, same thing, gathering native plant seeds and growing them out. In Hawaii, gathering exotic fruit seed too is an interesting thing to do. Never know when I'm going to be in the farmer's market and suddenly run across a piece of fruit that I've never seen before, never heard of. This happens. It's again so exciting. Mystery of seed. Why is this so exciting? I don't know. I guess so. We take that little seed with all its promise, and we put a little hope on it, and we stick it in a pot, and like it may have been 5,000, 10,000 miles away when it was gathered. But now here I am, and I'm out in the middle of the Pacific someplace, and I'm sticking this thing into a container, and I'm getting it to come up here and grow. I grew up in a neighborhood in the south side of Chicago that was turning from German, Polish, Irish, Italian, pretty much is what the neighborhood had been, to Hispanic. It was what, and you know, I'd be walking home from school and coming down the alleys, and you go by the Irish folks, and you could smell the cabbage, you know, permanent stink in the kitchens at the Irish houses. You know, you go by the Italians, and you could smell them making, you know, ravioli or pasta sauces or some such thing. The Italians almost always had nice gardens in their yards in Chicago. I'd come by my grandma's place, and she'd be cooking, you know, maybe pork and sauerkraut and smelly stuff. You know, it wasn't all that exciting to the nose, really. But next door, Anita's house, it was a Mexican family that lived there. I dropped by, and they were cooking enchiladas, and the smell of the chilies, you know, oh, it was so delicious. I'd go eat dinner with Anita. I'd tell Grandma, sorry, you know, I'm going to go next door and eat enchiladas, dear. You know, the Mexicans had all these different types of chili peppers, each one of them with a different spice, a different taste, a different smell, and so on. Made the food very mysterious. You know, as a white boy who was mostly German in Chicago, I couldn't figure out how they get that stuff to taste that way. And I'm still working on that one, by the way, because, you know, just subtle differences in the kinds of chilies that you're using makes all the difference in how the food comes out. And so I got so fascinated with chili peppers as a young man. I was the only guy in my high school that had his own pepper patch. You know, I used to grow peppers when I was, you know, even a teenager. Bring them to parties. We'd have a beer party, and I'd bring my jalapenos. You know, some people sometimes a macho contest, but otherwise we'd use them to wake up drunks. It was always good fun, a little sadistic, but fun. Yeah, so a long time before most of America really adopted the chili pepper, I was a chili head as a young boy, and I started collecting all manner of different chili peppers. It was a very exciting thing for me to discover how many different kinds there were, and the flavor and the smell between all of them, how much variation and so on. And so I was seeking, I guess, the perfect chili or some such thing. You know, it's traveling through New Mexico, ate lunch on the Luna Indian Reservation, and the guy who invited us, his aunt was the cook, and she was using local chilies to cook the stuff, and she had chilies that, oh man, I couldn't match them. That's the best I can say. Couldn't match them. It'll be a memory only. So, you know, before I was 30 years old, I'd probably cultivated something on the order of about 500 or 600 different types of chilies, and used to collect the seed as I'd travel, especially in the Southwest. I'd look for different varieties, collect that seed, and so I had these huge collections of pepper seeds. And any given year, my garden might have 30 or 40 different varieties of chilies in it and so on. So eventually, the rest of America caught up, and the chili pepper got to be a common phenomenon, you know, and everybody wants it hot and so on. And so when that happened, I was no longer in the avant-garde of chilies, and I moved on and started doing other things. I still grow chili peppers, you know, I still love them. And I still have some unique varieties, in fact, a few that maybe most of you have never grown. But it kind of lost its edge when it caught on with everybody else. I like being out there in the, you know, burning the grass ahead of other people, I guess, is where my excitement in life is. And with seeds, you can definitely do that, because seeds, there's always going to be a different one. There's always something else, you know. So, you know, let's talk about it. I'm curious if there are others of you out there, gardeners, who do find the seeds a deep and mystical sort of an experience. There's something about them that just speaks of Genesis and creation, and how the universe wants to be as much of everything as it possibly can. As Terence McKenna once put it, the universe wants to be infinite novelty, and the seeds definitely express the infinite novelty nature of the universe. Well, let's talk about it. I'm curious how others feel when they have seeds in their hands, something unusual. You know, do you get excited about new varieties and so on?